Hello and welcome to Connect Live with Sanctuary First. I'm James Cathcart, part of the team here at Sanctuary First, and beside me on this side,
Yes.
wearing a fantastic hat, is Albert Bogle.
Yeah. So what do you think?
I
Who do
think
you
it's
think?
very dashing,
Do you
very
know who
dashing.
I'm channeling? Maybe those of you who are regulars on the Sanctuary First, listen to the Sanctuary First uh, material. Can maybe throw that out as a bit of to get a bit of discussion going tonight. Who is
Hmm.
Albert channeling tonight as he's dressed with his hat and his tie? Who is he
Absolutely.
channeling?
There's a few wee Easter eggs there for people to follow. Before we came online this evening, Albert was saying he was channeling two individuals as part of the Sanctuary First community with his tie and his hat. So, for those in the know, feel free to guess. But yes, this is our opportunity to gather together as a community and connect. Connect is our Bible study material that we publish every month, and we have Connect groups that run all over the place. But over the summer, we thought it would be fun to have this online Connect space. So we are streaming currently to Facebook, to the Sanctuary First website, the Sanctuary First app, and I believe YouTube, Albert. Somebody commented the other day from YouTube.
Well, that's fantastic. And can I remind you, James, that why we're doing this is that we want to connect, we want more connect groups to happen after the summer. So in August, September, we're looking to have more connect groups happen, and we're showing people how a connect group can happen by going through the material here. But then people can join in their own connect group, or maybe run their own connect group using our material either online like this. You're not necessarily broadcasting it live for everyone, but it can be on a Zoom call or on a platform that they know of, or they can meet in person. So this is really our extended, you might say, advertising of Connect Group material.
Absolutely. So this is Connect. Good evening to Shona. Good evening, Shona. Thank you for your comment. It's always nice when we start seeing some comments come through, Albert, to make sure that we know that we are connected. It
Yep,
can take a second for everything to sync up, but it can also take a minute for people to find us and find the stream. Um,
absolutely.
so, so if you are joining us on the app or on the website, and you wish to say hello, then feel free to do so in the comments, and we'll try and keep track of everything. And another question that we've got for you this evening is that we're going to be looking at Philippians. Okay, our first reading is from the book of Philippians, chapter 4, verses 8 to 9. And we're going to be thinking a little bit about excellent things, praiseworthy things, admirable things,
Great.
excellent things.
Yeah.
And so, if you'd like to join us, because this can be an interactive experience, could you have a think of something excellent, something praiseworthy that you have seen recently, something that you have enjoyed that has blessed you in some way? Because in this reading, Paul, and we're going to read it shortly, but in this reading, Paul urges us to think about these things, focus on these things. And so, Albert, as we're getting started and people are joining us, I believe you have a bit of a story to share
Well,
of something excellent that's happened
I
recently.
have a bit of a story to share with you. You know, it's an interesting story because a few years back, my guitar, my Loudon guitar, I came into the study and I found it was lying on its stand, and the bridge had come off just almost as though it was unglued, and it was cracked. And a long story, tried very hard to get it fixed, and no one could fix it. They even sent it back to the Loudon makers, and they said it costs too much to fix this guitar. It's finished. And then recently I came across an email that I'd received from Jock Steen a while that during that period that I was trying to get my guitar fixed. It was leading up then to a Advent, and Jock Steen has sent out a Christmas card, but he had told a little story and written a little poem about how it was getting near to his wedding anniversary, and but in actual fact, originally his wedding cake, it couldn't be made because the person who was making it fell off a chair and broke their ribs. And it got me thinking about my broken guitar. So I wrote Jock a wee email, a wee poem, and I said this: the Loudon Lament. I'd love to put a tune to Mrs. Benny's Christmas cake, but guess what happened in May this year? I opened the study door to find my treasured Loudon no more. My highly strung companion of 30 years of yore lay wounded on the floor. The bridge had gone too far, removed itself from the guitar. The sound of music gone, no strings attached, the good vibrations left the body. And something inside me died. The truth is, the music cried. And since that day, I haven't played a note. Instead, I play and pray the luthier's skill will mend my cherished instrument. It's Advent now. I'm still waiting for the music to return, the Loudon resurrection to appear. And when it does, I swear I'll write a tune to Mrs. Benny's Christmas cake. Well, guess what? This week, the Loudon resurrection took place.
It has happened. The guitar that was broken.
Repaired. What Loudon said couldn't be repaired. Lachlan McCall in Edinburgh. He fixed it. Lachlan McCall in Edinburgh fixed my guitar. I think I'll need to write a song before I write Mrs. Benny's cake. There we go. There it is. So that's a great story. There's my guitar back fixed and it's sounding fantastic, James.
So there you go, folks. So if you're feeling like a beautiful guitar that's maybe fallen off its stand recently and is a bit battered and a bit bruised, there is hope for you, because in the hands of a skilled luthier, in the hands of a skilled craftsman such as God, you can be made whole again, can't you, Albert?
Absolutely. It took Lachlan a long time, actually, a few years. He had other reasons for not taking the time, but it did take time. And because he did it all by hand and he reconstructed what was impossible and glued it all together and let the glue stand. And because these guitars are glued, and then there's such stress and strain, you imagine, the stress that's on a bridge to keep a guitar going. So it's just amazing. So, yeah, that's just a great story. And I thought I'd share it with you all tonight.
Absolutely. So isn't that an excellent thing? Isn't that a praiseworthy thing that we can be grateful for? The guitar that we thought was lost is back. Just like we can come to God, and God, like the craftsperson, can work with us painstakingly to put us back together again. Now, I've got some hellos to make. Thank you so much, folks, for getting in touch. So Ilse saying evening. And good evening, Jane. Thank you for joining us. And good evening, Morven, who's popping in to see us. Good evening. And good evening, Raymond. So thank you so much, folks, for hopping on. And I'll just check in case anything's come through on the app. Not yet. Don't see any comments yet.
Does anyone know, if you've not missed it, you might be wondering, why is Albert wearing a what and why has he got a tie on? Well, I'm wondering if you know two members of the Sanctuary First community that appear quite regularly. Who am I channeling? Who am I paying tribute to tonight? If you know, get their names down there and there'll be a prize for you.
No prizes were discussed, so I take that with a pinch of salt. But yes, and the other thing that we were saying, folks, is that because we're thinking about excellent things, because we're thinking about great things, that Paul urges us to focus on in the Philippians reading, feel free to share them with us. So Albert's just shared a fantastic story there, a renewal, a return story that happened to him. So is there anything that you have seen recently, anything that you have experienced recently that is excellent, that is admirable, that is praiseworthy? Because it does the soul good to share these things, doesn't it, Albert? It does the soul good. Hi, Leanne. Away from Leanne there. Thank you for joining us. So that's something to have a think about. And you might not want to share it, don't worry, you might not want to comment just now, or maybe you're joining us on catch up and you think, well, it's been and gone. No, it's not too late. If you're watching us in the future, you've got something exciting and great that's happened, or it's just something beautiful that you've seen. It could be a beautiful sunset, maybe, or you just read this book that was great, or a cracking meal, or anything really large or small.
Okay, James, they've got it. They've got the point. Come on, let's get on with the Bible study.
I'm just excited. Hey, you had a whole 4-minute anecdote, okay? So
I know.
you can wind your neck in, Mr. Vogel. So our first reading is Philippians 4, verses 8 to 9, and I'll just read that for you now. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you.
It's an amazing reading, James, because it talks about peace. The God of peace will be with you. And what is he saying here? He's saying the peace comes through thinking about things that are good and trustworthy and honest. But the opposite is true as well. Discord and anxiety and stress comes when we overthink things, when we think, well, what would happen if that happens, and if that happens, and we go down a rabbit hole of fear. Isn't that right? I mean, we know that that's what happens, and here this Bible reading is giving us some really good advice, practical advice about to how to live well and how to cope with the difficulties that we face in our lives.
Absolutely. And so this reading comes at the end of our theme, Totally Authentic. So we've just tipped into July, but of course, Sunday there was the last Sunday in June. So we're just finishing our theme, Totally Authentic, and we've been thinking about what it means to be authentic, to have an authentic relationship with God, to be authentic in ourselves. And in our material, we're asking, what if it turns out we're already authentic? What if it turns out that God made you who you are, the way you are, and you already are an authentic being? How does that change how we live? And so in a news cycle, we live in this 24-hour news cycle. We are constantly bombarded with information that's often full of the inauthentic, the dubious, the insincere, or the fraudulent. What this reading is asking us to do is not look away from those things, but is trying to look past those things. So we don't have to turn away from the stuff that's hard and that's painful and difficult. We need to take these things to God. We need to deal with things that happen in our lives. This reading is not asking us to live in la la land. It's not asking us to ignore the good things. But in so much as we are able, where is our focus? Where is our energy? What are we pointing to? What are we focusing on? And well, can it be the just? Can it be the pure, the loving, the commendable, and the excellent?
Absolutely.
So, what we are going to do soon is share a wee clip which has an activity. This is from the Connect material for this month. And so if you would like to follow along, then you can. And perhaps if you are watching this and you've been thinking a bit about some of the excellent things, the beautiful things, the true things that you have seen recently that you want to bring to God, that you're thankful for, you could bear that in mind. Because in this wee video, from our Sanctuary First website, that's what I do. That's what I ask. That's what I ask you to do, is to think about these things and how we bring them to God. So I'll just cue this up now. But as you're watching the video, feel free to share any thoughts or comments, and we'll try and catch up with things. In our Philippians reading this week, Paul encourages us to focus on the commendable, the noble, the beautiful, the wonderful, the fantastic. To lift our minds, to lift our eyes, and to focus on these things. And so I've got a little idea of a little activity, a wee little action that you could do that might help you think about this, that might help you think about focusing on these good things. So last week I was talking a bit about our phones, how much we spend on our phones, and how actually sometimes when we're looking for the answer, when we're looking for that insight for what God is saying, maybe it's an idea actually not in any of the apps, but just in the silent button. Maybe that's where we'll find God. Just put the silent button on, put the phone down,
and have that time to listen with God. And then, as well as intentionally switching it off, we can then intentionally switch it back on again and go back into the world. So it's kind of like a on-off type thing, you know? And so this week I was thinking, what if when we think about focusing on the good, the noble, the just, the beautiful in our lives authentically, you know, this theme has been totally authentic. When we think about doing that in a way that's not just, you know, for the sake of it, that's not just a hollow kind of cheap sort of optimism, you know, but something that with real hope, with real authentic hope. And I thought maybe rather than just thinking about turning towards and turning away, because that's helpful, maybe we could do a little bit of something where we think about looking past, when we think about looking beyond something. So we've got two hands. That's the props that we've got for this week. So I'm thinking, take one of your hands in front of you, okay? And in this hand, you know, maybe you want to hold the stuff that's heavy, that's weighing you down. You know, or maybe you feel that a bit in your hand. You don't need to go into any detail there, but just think, you know, I've got these concerns, I've got these worries, I've got these anxieties, these very real things. You know, and you want to take them to God. You know, sometimes when people pray, they put their hands out, you know, as a gesture that they're offering what they're saying to God, right? So let's take one of our hands and hold that. This hand is holding the things that are heavy, that are weighing us down. Then take your other hand, okay? And this hand needs to go further, okay? This hand needs to go further out. And this hand is a little bit lighter, okay? What we're carrying in this hand are the things that we long for, the things that we hope for, the things that we cherish, the things that are beautiful, that give us encouragement, hope, commendable, full of justice, okay? So this hand is held a little higher, a little further away, okay? It makes us look up. We've got to look up to this hand. We're looking down. What's weighing is down here in this hand, but this hand is reaching forward. And then just look at your hands, right? And you'll find kind of hard to focus on both hands at the same time, isn't it? It's easy to see two hands at the same time, but it's quite hard, even at that short distance, to keep both hands in focus. So let's take our eyes and bring our eyes to this hand, the close hand to us. And when we do that, this hand is now in our peripheral vision. We can't see it very clearly. It's out of focus. We know it's there, but we can see it. We can see this hand much more easily. And this is often how we live our lives, looking down, looking down at what's in front of us, at the things that are weighing us down right here. That's natural. We're human. We've got to be looking out for these things. We've got to be on the ball. But then relax your eyes and then let them focus on the far away hand, on the hand that's lighter. And when we do that, these things that we're bringing to God in this hand are in our focus. Okay, these are the things now that we're focusing on, and suddenly this hand, it's quite hard to see. It's quite hard to focus on. It is the hand now that's dipped into our peripheral vision. And so this came to me as a way of praying. I was just thinking, you know, what do we do when we're saying we're not going to turn away from the things that are heavy, that are weighing us down? We still want to bring them to God. We still have a heart for these things. Okay, we're not going to turn away from them towards this hand. But what if we let it, in a time of prayer, diminish to our peripheral vision? Okay, and I recommend you actually try this, like actually physically try this when you're praying, because suddenly this hand, as heavy as it is, as close to us as it is, drops out of focus. And this hand, the hand that's obviously not holding anything, but we're imagining that it's holding those hopes, those things we cherish, those things that we love. Maybe this can be a bit of a way forward for us in our prayers and in our lives as we think about living authentic lives, integrated lives as Christians, that we don't forget this hand, that we don't ignore this, we don't forget all the stuff that we're carrying here, but we also to look at this hand that's further ahead, that's further up. Our posture has to become a little bit straighter as our field of vision grows a bit bigger. And so instead of doing this and down, we're doing this and out. But we acknowledge that we have to take both of these things to God in prayer. And then perhaps, because of this integrated life, maybe we could bring those two hands together again, saying that we bring it all to you, God. We bring the things we hope for, the things we cherish, and the things that weigh us down, that we struggle with, and ask God to help us focus on these things and to let these things diminish, so that, yes, we pray about them, yes, we think about them, but we don't let them take over. And instead, following Paul's advice, we draw our attention to the things that are beautiful, that are commendable, that are noble, that are just, that lead us on. So, again, another wee activity you might want to try this week.
Interesting, James. One of the things maybe I was thinking about that is to help one another, to concentrate on worthy and good things, is to invite someone to go with you to maybe an art gallery, or to go to see a good film, or to invite them to come out with you for tea or coffee, but invite somebody who's going through, maybe who's looking too closely at things, to see something in a new way. Sometimes I used to do that as a parish minister. I remember one particular person who was struggling with brain cancer, a tumour in his brain. And Stephen and I were friendly with this guy, and we said, why don't we go into Edinburgh and get a shave? So the three of us went off into Edinburgh and we got a Turkish shave, and we had such a laugh about it all. And it just lifted this guy's spirits for the day. So it's that kind of thing, isn't it? It's not just saying to people, thinking these things, but we need to be proactively helping our friends who are going through hard times, to lift them out of that situation, to give them a change of scenery. And that's what Paul's saying in this. Bible study is so relevant for everyday living.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's that rootedness in this moment. So much steals our time from us, steals our hope, steals our joy from us as we anticipate things, or we dread things, or worried about things. But God loves us right here in this present moment. God is with us right here in this present moment. And so the more that we can do, as you say, Albert, to bring one another in to this present moment. And those are lovely suggestions. It might be that there's somebody and you think, I don't know what I can do to help. But maybe what you can do to help someone is just be a friend, just be a pal, and point them to something. There's something about standing side by side with someone and looking out at the same view that can be life-changing. So yes, that was my wee prayer activity. And if you fancy doing that at home at some point this week, that could be cool. This idea of taking it all to God, because it's okay to take everything to God. You can take the stuff that's heavy, that's weighing you down. Of course you can, but can you, while holding them in front of you, look up towards this hand? So that's something to try. And it was quite fun when making that video. I didn't realize until after that my wee camera was going to keep fighting with the focus as it kept focusing on the two different hands, which kind of explained the point, because that's exactly the thing, is you can't focus on both.
But in communion, James, too, can I remember the Socium Corda says, we lift up our hearts unto the Lord, we lift them up. Lifting ourselves up into God's presence in communion is meant to lift ourselves up into the presence of God. And when that happens, then we leave behind the things that we're struggling with and we're thinking we're running. And for that moment, we're engaged in the presence of the one who made us and loves us. Absolutely. So anyway, what have you got next for us? What's the next passage we're going to look at tonight?
Yeah, so we've got two readings which kind of link together, and one in the Old Testament and one in the New Testament. So our next reading is from 1 Kings 19, verses 19 to 21. And if you are watching on the app or on Facebook, there should be a link, by the way, folks, in the description. If you want to follow along and look at our Connect material, open it in another browser, perhaps, on another window, I mean. If you want to read along as we're talking about the questions. But this is our reading here.
James, to remind people, we are wanting you to participate in this with us. So we just don't want this a James and Albert show. We really do need you guys out there to get involved in this Bible study with us. The things that how we can inspire one another. So come on, let's hear from you, so as we're not just doing it all ourselves tonight. James, what do you think?
Absolutely, and it may be, folks, that we're a wee bit quiet tonight, and it might be that it is summer, and that people will catch this at a different time. So you may not be joining us live at this moment, but even if you're coming later, feel free to join the conversation.
Good.
and to catch on. So, but yes, so our reading, and to give you the context, God has just told Elijah to do what he's about to do. So God has told Elijah that he is to call Elisha, which is a little bit confusing, particularly in my accent where the two words don't sound that different. But presumably Elijah knows who he is and Elisha knows who he is, and we'll trust them. So let's have this reading. So Elijah went from there and found Elisha, son of Shaphat. He was ploughing with 12 yoke of oxen, and he himself was driving the 12th pair. Elijah went up to him and threw his cloak around him. Elisha then left his oxen and ran after Elijah. "Let me kiss my father and mother goodbye," he said, "and then I will come with you." "Go back," Elijah replied. "What have I done to you?" So Elisha left him and went back. He took his yoke of oxen and slaughtered them. He burned the ploughing equipment to cook the meat and gave it to the people, and they ate. Then he set out to follow Elijah and become his servant. So this is a slightly unconventional scene of calling going on. And just to say hello, Paul. I've just seen you coming in to say hi. Thanks, Paul. Lovely to see you. And so, yeah, so this is a calling. Now, it's weird for us. I was thinking, I wrote about this in Daily Worship, Albert, and it's funny to imagine if you were sitting in your office typing away and this guy comes in, throw his coat over your head and walks away. That's how you were told you were getting a promotion. It'd be kind of weird, wouldn't it? But obviously at the time, this is a symbolic gesture. I mean, this is where we get the phrase passing on the mantle, right? This is a thing that happened, the physical passing over, it's symbolic. So I think Elisha pretty quickly works out what is happening. But Elijah is pretty terse. He doesn't say, like, "You're going to be my apprentice here. I'm training you up to be my successor." No, he just flings a coat on him and walks away. And when Elisha says, "Look, I need to say goodbye to my parents," Elijah basically says, "Well, it's not my problem." And it made me think that Elijah's probably not a people person. But what do you think, Albert, coming to this reading and thinking about this idea of, because this whole theme has been about authenticity and about the idea of moving from one thing to another thing? Because we all have these moments of calling in our life, don't we? Where God, it's not necessarily calling always to the ministry or something like that, but God calls us to things.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes in the translation things are missed as well, but the point is that the main point is that Elijah is going and passing his mantle on to another and choosing but having taken time probably in prayer, God's feeling as though God is leading him, who's going to be his successor. And then it's almost as though he doesn't want to influence him too much at that point. It's now over to you. Because he was going off to, I suppose there's going to be chariots of fire for him. And so it's almost as though he is passing the mantle on. And there's maybe a word of advice to all of us as we get older, as we pass the mantle on to another, not to seek to control them too much. Could there be something there, James?
Absolutely. And one of the things... Excuse me, frog in my throat. One of the things, in that Chariots of Fire passage that you refer to, when the time jumps forward and now Elisha is waiting to really step into Elijah's shoes. Elijah's going to move on and Elisha's going to step in, is that Elisha is so focused on Elijah. He's more focused on the prophet than he is on God. And he won't leave Elijah's side and he's clinging to him. And in a sense, in that reading, what's happening is that Elijah is saying, come on, you got to focus on God. And so there's this responsibility when you're a mentor, when you're leading someone, you're calling someone, to realize that, you're directing them on to God. It's not all about you. This isn't about hero worship.
Yeah. What do other people think? What do you think when you read that passage? What's it saying to you? We'd love to hear your perspective on it, because we all have had the opportunity to be influenced by a mentor, or maybe even to mentor someone else. But what do you think about that position? Not only my view, but what the scripture's saying, what's going on there? How do you interpret that? It'd be good to hear from you.
Absolutely. And it's one of these things where And just in case, just a little bit of time in case anyone does want to chip in on that. But one of the things I explored when I was looking at this reading for daily worship was the idea that yes, on the surface of it, this does look odd. It looks unusual, the way the characters are interacting. That example of sitting in the office and someone throwing a coat over you. But on the other hand, our experience of God calling us, our experience of being led to something new, sometimes comes out of the blue, doesn't it, Albert? It's when we're in the middle of the everyday life. Elisha there's no special ceremony or words going on. He's literally pushing the oxen. He's in the field. He's knee deep in mud. He's working away. And that's when the call comes. And I think God often surprises us, takes us off guard, doesn't he? And so there may be that moment of confusion when, Elisha's taking the coat off, he's realizing what the mantle is, who threw it, what's going on. And I think sometimes actually that is kind of like, in a funny way, kind of like our experience of calling. There can be that initial disorientation. What was that? Not me, surely. What? Oh, gosh, yeah, me, wow. And then our mind starts racing and we think, what are the implications of this? And so we're thinking about what we're leaving behind and then where we're going. And so that's what you see in the reading is that Elisha is chopping up all the oxen. And so there's this process of letting go where he's been, saying goodbye to his parents, literally breaking up the tools. I think it says that he's burning the plow equipment. That's how he makes his fire. So he's not going back to that plow.
Absolutely, so kind of burning his bridges behind. He's making a commitment that he's decided to do this, and that's it. And that call of God in our lives is such an important thing, and we sometimes don't talk enough about that. I mean, ministers talk about their call, but it's not, God just doesn't call people to be ministers as such, or but God calls us to follow him in our different spheres of life and to be witnesses where we are, and to understand that calling, and to work that out as to what's God saying to us about our lives and the situations we're in. And we go through different seasons of experiences, James, in our lives. I mean, you're a lot younger than I am, and I've come through a lot, but we have these different experiences that we have to engage with sometimes on a number of occasions to reassess the call. Where is God calling me now? What is God saying now?
And absolutely, John has just commented. He's saying, John, I'm thinking of Eric Liddell. Speaking of when he ran, he felt God willing and pushing him. And by saying and feeling this, he was letting go and doing the will of God, and he was inspiring those around him. Beautiful.
Absolutely. Is that he felt that when he was running.
Yeah, he feels God's joy or something, isn't there?
Yeah. And that's, I think that's such a lovely quote that John has brought in there, because it takes us to the place that we've been talking about previously, about whatsoever things are joyful, good. And like, some people find release in running, going out to run. Running and they get a joy in running, or a joy in playing football, or a joy in playing sport. That's not a bad thing. That's a God thing, and pushing yourself to realize that being in that moment is so important. It's a good point, John. Thank you.
Thanks, John, for that. Really appreciate that. And of course, Eric Liddell was the Scottish athlete, the runner that the film Chariots of Fire is about. It's a biopic of his life. If you don't know, check out the story of Eric Liddell. But
it's an amazing story too. Of course, he goes off to China. He leaves it all behind. He almost like burns his bridges of his running and all that. He leaves it and he goes off to China, and he ends up in a Japanese prisoner of war camp. I don't know if you know all that, but it's a fantastic story on how he ends up helping people and caring for people, and being a confidant to some of the people going through really, really difficult times. It's a very, very powerful story.
Absolutely. And And yeah, definitely. That is, these lights that shine in our faith history, are great to come back to. We're thinking about focusing on the things that are commendable, excellent, praiseworthy. These people who are often, the best, have such great humility as well. This is not just putting people up on a pedestal, but it's realizing the grace of God and how God has worked in different lives, and how compelling that story is. Because we're story creatures, aren't we, Albert? We're
Yeah,
hardwired to
absolutely.
listen to stories, to remember stories. Stories will stick in our heads. Songs will stick in our heads when a lot else comes in one ear and out the other.
Yeah.
So we're going to shortly move on to our third reading, our final reading. And feel free to pop in with any other comments or thoughts that you have. But we're going to have a little opportunity now just to mention a couple of things about Sanctuary First, about how things are going on, maybe plug a couple of things for a moment before we return to the rest of our study. So, Albert, I think we've had some good news as a community
We've
recently.
had some really interesting news this week. Again, we've got this £25,000 grant that's been awarded to us, but we've got to match fund it before we get it. So as we get the 50,000, which helps us match our budget for this year. Well, it looks as though now we've got someone who has come forward this week and said, look, they were matching the remaining amount of money that was left to get us going for this month, for this year, and hopefully for the next 2 years as well. And we will still have some match funding for the next 2 years to find, but we're almost there. And it's just so great. But that's us now getting to the stage where we're covering our core costs, but we want to do a lot more. We've got so much more to do, but it's giving us stability to go forward, and that's just so much more to thank God for. So that's some good news in that area.
Absolutely. And so just our sincere thanks for all the support as a community that you've given us, that you've shown us, the time you've invested, and the generous support, the donations. It really means a huge amount to show how the community is invested and growing and developing. So thank you so much for that. And I've just seen there's another comment from yourself, John. My hero, he was in many ways an apostle and of course would not run on the Sabbath. Blessing, gents. I'm walking and tuned in. Look at that. Someone's on the move. John, you were on the move and you were listening to us, which is pretty cool. And it's one of these things, like Albert, you and I have talked about this, that quite often we like to listen to things, don't we? We will stick a video on, but we're not necessarily always watching it. And so, folks, that's cool. If you're washing up and you can't just,
I know you can't
rubber
see,
gloves on, you can't just type in a comment and you can't see Albert's lovely hat.
That's right. Nobody's got back to me about my hat and my tie.
I think it's time for us to tell us, Albert.
I think I'm going to have to. To say who it is. I'm channeling, but my hat is my pal Ian Jimison, because he always has a hat, and the tie is trying to bring a bit of class to the act tonight. Our Jack Steele, is always properly dressed. He always has a tie on.
Absolutely.
And he sometimes chastises you because you're too sloppy there.
I know, it's very much shabby chic for me.
You need to get the tie on for next week.
There's no tie, and this isn't ironed.
And I bet your shoes aren't polished either.
No, I'll confess to you, I'm wearing Crocs right now. And you can't polish a Croc. You can't polish a Croc. So, absolutely. So we shout out there to the doc, Ian Jamieson, beloved contributor of Sanctuary First and musician and co-conspirator with you, Albert. And then Jack, of course, who creates such wonderful images for us at Sanctuary First, and does so much across our media and multimedia. So nice wee tribute there, Albert, to those members of our team. And speaking of Jack, the thing that I wanted to highlight, folks, is that we have moved into July. And so starting this Sunday, we will be beginning a new theme at Sanctuary First, which is called Enjoy. And it really ties in with a lot of the things that we've been talking about this evening. And there's the sense that the end of this theme is to kind of lead us into the next theme as we think about this idea of, okay, so authenticity. Maybe it's not something we have to strive for or push for. Maybe it's something we already have as God has given us this authenticity. So what's next? Well, what is our chief end, Albert? What is the chief end of humanity?
To glorify God and to enjoy him forever.
And to enjoy him forever. From the Shorter Catechism there. But yeah, and we're going to be thinking about that. We're going to be thinking about what it means to enjoy God, and not just happiness, because, you know, happiness can be a mirage. Happiness can be that thing on the horizon that you just keep reaching for. Like, oh, if I just had enough money, if I just got this promotion, if I just had a bigger house, then I'll be happy. But you know what? Joy springs up, wells up in the middle of the most strange circumstances. And it's often the people with the least who discover joy in the most amazing and wonderful ways. So we're going to be thinking about joy, real deep joy, over July.
Good.
So in these Connect groups, that's what we'll be chatting about. But let's turn now to our final reading in our material. And as I say, these kind of link. So these readings are both in the lectionary, which is the pattern that a lot of church denominations use to work through the Bible over a 3-year period. And so readings that have similar subject matter or that echo each other, rhyme each other, are often grouped together in the lectionary. And this reading seems similar at first to the Elijah reading, and then it becomes very different and very thought-provoking. So I'll read to us now from Luke chapter 9, and this is verses 51 to 62. As the time approached for him to be taken up to heaven, Jesus resolutely set out for Jerusalem, and he sent messengers on ahead, who went into a Samaritan village to get things ready for him. But the people there did not welcome him, because he was heading for Jerusalem. When the disciples, James and John, saw this, they asked, "Lord, do you want us to call fire down from heaven to destroy them?" But Jesus turned and rebuked them. Then he and his disciples went to another village. As they were walking along the road, a man said to him, "I will follow you wherever you go." Jesus replied, "Foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." He said to another man, "Follow me." But he replied, "Lord, first let me go and bury my father." Jesus said to him, "Let the dead bury their own dead, but you go and proclaim the kingdom of God." Still another said, "I will follow you, Lord, but first let me go back and say goodbye to my family." Jesus replied, "No one who puts a hand to a plough and looks back is fit for service in the kingdom of God." So there you go, Albert. This is a humdinger. This is a powerful reading. We're used to Jesus meek and mild. We're used to all the loving things that Jesus says, the tender things Jesus says. And this still, a couple of thousand years later, has the power to shock us, to startle us, to root us to the spot. When Jesus says, "Let the dead bury their dead." Isn't it? Oh, it's a jolt, Albert.
Yeah. It's a challenging one, isn't it? But it's about, there's something here that in the way that the passage has been written, it's talking about the immediacy of the gospel to be proclaimed. That when God calls us to do a task, is to get on with it. Now, how you interpret, there have been different interpretations of this passage over the years. The assumption is that the man who said, "Let me first bury my father," it wasn't that the man's father was dead, that he was there. It was that he wanted to wait until his father died, and then he would be free, and then he would be able to follow Jesus. So his immediate short-term response was, "I can't do it just at the moment, but I will do it when I'm free." And there's an element in which that Jesus is saying, you don't get it. You know, if you don't see what it means to come alive now and follow me, because I'm on a journey, I'm moving on. He was getting ready, as it were, to go into Jerusalem. And so if you're going to come and be a disciple, come now. Now is the time. And I think that's the danger, that how often has someone felt a call of God in their life and they've put it off? I know people like that over the years have said that to me. And I say to people, well, don't live in the past. Get on with now. Now you realize it, do something about it. And don't feel sentimental about it. Just get on with doing whatever it is now you can do. That season might have gone, but there'll be a new season and a new calling and a new opportunity. Do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And as you said, Albert, there's lots of ways, when it comes to reading the New Testament, when you're reading the Bible, you're reading something from a long time ago that was written in a different style. We don't always know the information. And so, yes, there's possibilities that indeed perhaps his father was not yet dead, or that, there were certain responsibilities he had to fulfill for the estate or something like that. It might not have been literally the funeral's tomorrow, can I have an extra day to stay sort of thing. But I think as well, if this passage makes us feel uneasy, makes us feel slightly uncomfortable at first, that's not necessarily maybe a bad thing. The Bible is full of so much that makes us think, and there's so much that can comfort us. And reassure us. But there is something here that Jesus wants us to sit up and take notice of. And something I find helpful when reading Jesus in the New Testament is to read Jesus with the Jesus of now. So the Jesus of now, the Jesus we know, that we follow, as we know through the Passion, is someone who loves us to the edge of reality. And this person is not a callous person. This person is not a cruel person or an insensitive person that would say something just to be mean, just a quip or a put down. And there's actually ways in which what he's saying here could be really quite loving. It's maybe bracing, and the way it's presented to us in this quick excerpt is very jolt. You read it, but you could imagine Jesus, coming to us and saying, "Look, you're a long time burying this. You're a long time letting go of this, and I want you to move on with me. I want you to move on, because what we're about here, what's going to happen here is so big and so huge, and the train's leaving the station and you got to get on board. And maybe that train's not going too fast. Maybe that train's slow enough that it's at walking speed and you can jump on, but the train is leaving the station. Are you coming? Are you joining in?"
I think that's a really good point you're making there. And it's tying in with what we were saying earlier on about let the dead bury the dead. It's almost about stop raking over old dead bones of old things that's gone. If we think about maybe that you've been hurt by the church and it's dead, and that the life that you've got, that part is gone, but you keep raking over it and you keep on, you keep going back to that. And maybe what Jesus is saying is, it's time you were out of there. It's time you were out of there. Let the dead bury the dead. Let it go. That's no longer your scene, because you have to come alive in Christ. You come alive in me, and let my life live in you, and have a new life, a new beginning, and move away from that into something new. And I think that there is something powerful about that kind of picture. That whatsoever things are good, whatsoever true, whatsoever things are of good report, think on these things, but not only think on them, act upon them.
Yeah.
And so you can see I think there's a kind of link in all of this that we're pulling out tonight for people to start thinking about. It's time to move on.
Absolutely.
Get involved and do something, and do it now. If something's coming to your head just now to get on with something, get on with it. Instead of talking about it and saying, "Oh, I need to get the committee." You'd be too Presbyterian or get a committee to think about it. Listen, and how sometimes you've just got to
Well, that's it. There's a thing they sometimes talk about, in writing circles, about the idea of if you've got an idea, you've got something you want to write, something you want to create, don't tell anyone about it until you've got something down, right? And the idea for that, the reason for that bit of advice is not to be especially secretive or to protect your idea or whatever, but it's because we get a little hit, a little kick when we have an idea and we share it with someone and they go, "Oh, that's a good idea." And if you stay in that place, you never actually have to write the thing. So I could just say, "Oh, Albert, I've got this idea, this thing I want to write," and I could tell you about it, and you might be like, "Oh, that's brilliant," and I could tell Lily, and she'd be like, "Oh, that's brilliant," and I could just keep telling people about this idea of this thing I could write, and I'm never actually writing it. And I think there's some wisdom there in terms of our lives too, that maybe sometimes we're bringing something to God and we're saying, "Oh, there's this thing that I want to see, like I want this to happen in my church, I want this to happen in my community, like wouldn't this be great?" But we get to the point where, maybe actually now is the time to just go for it, to just pursue it. And something else in terms of these two readings is that Jesus himself was conscious of the rhyme. So in his in the verses there, he talks about no one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for service in the kingdom of God. Now, there's no plow until he mentions it. The plow is a specific echo to the Elisha reading. And he knew it, and the people that were following him probably knew it. And it's quite possible that somebody who was saying, "Oh, first I must go back and say goodbye to my mother and father," was consciously echoing Elisha. They were saying, "Yes, I'm going to follow you, Prophet Jesus. I'm going to be a prophet like Elijah was." And Jesus is saying, "Wake up. I don't want you to be Elisha. I'm not calling you to be Elisha. We're not playing that story out." And so there's a kind of theater to it, and when we hear these examples, Jesus was a fantastic public speaker, and so in the Gospels we get these glimpses of these public moments, that catch the imagination. But Jesus is also someone who loves us tenderly, and there's nothing in the Gospels to say that if any of these people came up to Jesus afterwards and said, "What were you on about, by the way?" that Jesus wouldn't have sat down with them. Like, Jesus is constantly sitting down and eating meals with people and breaking bread with people. So it's not like Jesus said to them, "Well, anyone who turns the plow isn't fit," and then he walked off and he never saw them again. Like, there's nothing in the Gospels that suggests that that's how Jesus would behave. But what is being portrayed here is a scene that for everyone to witness, to see. It's kind of almost like seeing preaching in action. It's really cool seeing how Jesus interacts with the groups, the stories he tells, the way he pulls them out, makes them think, sometimes saying quite provocative things to get people going. But we're drawing near the end of our time here. So folks, if you've got anything that you want to say, we're going to close on a song soon. But if you've got any last things you want to chip in and join in, that's fine. And it's cool if you don't. Don't worry if you don't. Like I say, it's quite quiet this evening. It's quite quiet this evening, and that's okay.
Yeah, people are watching the tennis. I would rather watch the tennis and listen to me. So that's just being honest. So
Let's
maybe
be
you'll watch
honest.
this afterwards.
Exactly.
Afterwards. The
Exactly.
tennis has been
Depending
good.
on how this tennis has gone.
See, that's another thing. My hat was about the tennis as well. I was thinking, maybe that's why I got the hat out, the tennis as well.
Maybe you'll be at the strawberries next.
Strawberries, we've got strawberries in the fridge.
We've had a few growing in our garden, and it's been lovely to eat them. And I tell you what, they taste so much better than the ones in the shops. Like they're red on the inside, like the ones you get in the shop are all white, and kind of watery.
What shop are you going to? I don't buy them. What shop are you
We
going
don't have fancy.
What shop are you going to get?
We don't have fancy strawberries up here. Anyway, we're wittering on about strawberries, so it really is getting late. But folks, we're going to share this tune from the back catalogue. This is a song I absolutely love. This was Albert doing a strip back. I always tease Albert about this. I always keep getting it out because you just did this on the cuff quick. You just had an idea and did it once, and I fell in love with it. I just think this is beautiful. It's always in my head. It's such a toe tapper. This is Albert's version of I Have Decided, and it was the only choice for this evening as we're thinking about, make the decision. Focus on the beautiful things, the excellent things, the wonderful things. Get your feet on the ground, your hands on the plow, and get on with it. Thank you, Shona, for your comment. Appreciate that. But let's listen now. I'll just get it queued up, and then we'll wish you a good night.
Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back. No turning back. No turning back. No turning back. The world behind me, the cross before me, the world behind me, the cross before me, the world behind me, the cross before me. No turning back, no turning back, no turning back, no turning back. Though no one joins me, still I will follow. Though no one joins me, still I will follow. Though no one joins me, still I will follow. No turning back, no turning back, no turning back, no turning back. Will you decide now to follow Jesus? Will you decide now to follow Jesus? Will you decide now to follow Jesus? No turning back, no turning back, no turning back, no turning back, no turning back. Now turning back, I got my hand on the plow and my feet on the ground. No turning back, no turning back, no turning back. I got my hand on the plow and my feet on the ground. No turning back, no turning back, no turning back, no turning back. I got my eyes on Jesus and my hand is no turning back, no turning back, no turning back, no turning back. I got my eyes on Jesus and my hand on his. No turning back, 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 no turning back. I have decided.
There you go. Albert has decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. We both thoroughly recommend it, don't we, Albert?
Absolutely, James. It's been lovely being with you tonight, James, chatting with you, talking with you, thinking about where we've started off, just thinking on good things, keeping the things that worry us and what we keep close to us and what we that way, and then going on to think about just what it means to put Christ at the center of everything, and to be willing to give some stuff up in order to get on with what we've been called to do.
Absolutely. Both
and
feet
so
on the ground.
So tonight is all about decision making. Maybe that's just what you needed to hear tonight. It's time to decide.
It's time to decide. Well, thank you so much, folks, for joining. If this is a new experience for you, Sanctuary First, we do encourage you to check out our website and all the stuff that we do. We pray together every morning at 7 a.m. You can join our streams on Facebook or on the app. And if you enjoyed it this evening, if you got something out of it, maybe share it. Maybe share the link with a friend. Maybe email it to a pal. If there's someone that you think could benefit from hearing this discussion, then hit that share button and spread the word. But thank you again. Good night and God bless. I'm on holiday shortly, but more members of the team will be back next week and over the summer to take us through more of the Bible and enjoyment. So until next time, God bless.
Good night, everyone.